This is Behind the Scenes Oklahoma. Hey everyone, welcome to Behind the Scenes Oklahoma, the podcast where we explore the people, stories, and creative forces building Oklahoma's film, community, and industry. I'm Anna Berry. You probably already knew that. And today we're joined by writer, director, producer Kyle West. Nice to virtually meet you, Kyle. I got to see you on set, but we didn't officially get to really meet and talk. So I'm so grateful that you're joining us today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's awesome to finally talk. I know I was super busy that day, but was glad that you got to go around, talk to everybody, and see what we were up to.
Well, thank you for letting us go on set. For our viewers, we got to go on set of your film South of Stillwater, which was filmed in Tecumseh. And we were privileged to go when you had quite some actors there and you were filming in this really cool old school church. So I want to give you the floor. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from. I know you've made a journey back here, and then we'll go into South of Stillwater.
Yeah, I grew up in Tecumseh. I moved there in 2010, lived there for about 8 years, moved to Chicago, went to art school up there, went to film school, and came back here to make this movie and, kind of brought me back to square one. And so it was amazing being able to go back to kind of where it all started and bring these actors there and live in the actual world where, this takes place for me personally.
Where do you live currently?
I'm in Norman right now, currently.
Okay, so you're a boomeranger like me. You're from Oklahoma, you left and you came back.
Yeah, it has that way of bringing you back, and you just can't stay away. There's certainly a great allure about this place that I feel like most people, if you didn't grow up here, you're not from here, you're not gonna understand. As an Okie, it's hard to stay away.
It is. It's all about the people, I think. The people of Oklahoma are just bar none the best. But so Tecumseh, it was my first time to go to Tecumseh. It was a lovely drive south. I live in Tulsa. And tell us a little bit about the town. Color the town for us. It's got a cute little main street and a big church.
Yeah, well, yeah, that church was, I think the first church built there, if I'm not mistaken. I think during the land run I think these Presbyterians founded the town, and that was their church they built, I believe. And yeah, I mean, Tecumseh, I feel like can represent really any small town America, Midwestern America, and you can kind of copy and paste that town, that cute little main street pretty much anywhere. And so I think it's relatable, I think is probably the best thing to say about it. There are so many characters that live in Tecumseh, and I feel like in Oklahoma in general, there's no shortage of characters. So I think that's probably the most interesting thing about Tecumseh.
And so tell us about South of Stillwater. And specifically, this is your first film that you wrote and directed and produced. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, give us the deep dive into it.
Well, the inspiration, just thinking about, you know, that butterfly effect of if I didn't move here, who would I be? What decisions, what things happened to me? Um, what was the result of moving to Oklahoma from Colorado back in 2010? I didn't make that decision, my parents did. But so just thinking about that was the first initial seed, and if I could try to translate that into a character, what would that look like? And from there, just kind of snowballed into this very personal story that I just felt compelled to tell. Just thinking, like I mentioned earlier, about all these characters that I met growing up in Tecumseh. How can I transfuse the story with all those experiences that can come across intelligently in a kind of fictional way that, nothing's a true, like, one-to-one personal experience of mine, but um, how can I do myself justice and this town justice?
I think a lot of filmmakers would connect to this, or just writers, even actors. I'm actually writing a kind of a cabaret one woman show about my version of this. Who am I and who was I and who am I as I travel the world and who am I as I come back home? What was South of Stillwater about? It's a coming of
Uh-huh.
age story, and I know it's teenagers kind of on the brink of who they are and pushing the boundaries. And you had some amazing actors portray these young men and women. So tell us a little bit about the storyline.
Yeah, I I was looking at this painting, The Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch, I believe is his name. I'm trying to write this story. I'm looking at this painting and it's a triptych. So there's three different panels to it. And one depicts the Garden of Eden, one depicts what I believe is Earth, and one panel depicts what I believe is hell. And so I see this three-act structure kind of in this painting, and that's when it really clicked for me. Oh, this could be this Adam and Eve allegory where we're in a small town. We see these temptations happen naturally just through anybody's kind of upbringing. There's a loss of innocence that happens. So, how can we make this mythical in this kind of very ordinary place? So, yeah, the story just dealing with, these two kids, Levi and Charlotte, who are dealing with family drama and their own personal love life. And how does this all interact with each other in a way that can kind of stay true to this Adam and Eve allegory where we have our serpent Travis who kind of leads them into that a bit.
I think it's a timeless tale, right, for all of us having lived through high school and survived it somehow, some way. So since this was your debut feature, what did you learn about yourself as a filmmaker?
I learned how patient I need to be. I think that's the biggest thing where there's so much happening around you. So many people need something from you and you have to stay composed and be patient. I think that was probably the most interesting thing was being able to handle that as a first time filmmaker. I mean, there's so many things. Kyle Harris, another great Oklahoma filmmaker, said said to me the other day that filmmakers kind of live like dog years. And so like 1 year for a filmmaker is kind of like 6 years or 7 years. And how I kind of interpret that is this 1 year working on this film, what would have taken me maybe 6 years to learn just took me one actually being in the process making this. Just how to work with actors and how to let them, do their process where I'm not stepping on them because I have this vision. I need this where they can have this like shared custody with me with these characters. So that all just kind of comes with patience, I think.
Great lesson. So, from concept to completion, I know a lot of just the creative community listen to this. Break it down for us. Concept. You had this idea. You started writing it. What's kind of the process? How does that work? A, B, C, D, and obviously you're wrapped. Now you're in post production. But how did you create the streamline to actually complete it?
Yes, I mean, was given this idea, I feel like it's tough. Sometimes I feel like ideas aren't necessarily yours. They come from someplace. And I felt like this idea was almost given to me and I just felt, possessed to write it and it needed to be made. I knew it took place here in Oklahoma and I didn't know anybody here in the Oklahoma film industry, but I knew I had to come down here and find people to help me make it. And so you get the first draft or second draft of the script done where I felt like it was, a shootable script. I come down here, I'm meeting with people and, we had what I would like to call like a previs stage where we ended up filming this. I had a different crew and like a different team. It it wasn't necessarily going to plan and I decided to shut it down after about like 3 days of filming. We were going to end up not having the movie. We weren't making our days. People didn't have enough time in prep. And so it kind of fell on me a little bit for rushing this thing, I feel like. And so I stopped it. I needed to reevaluate everything, which led me to Tanya Ruby and Sonny Suman, Richard James, all these people. And we were able to kind of take a breath and they were able to help me guide me through this pre-production stage. They had all the contacts. They knew everybody. And I kind of just got to sit down and learn from them. So like I was able to talk to my heads of departments. I got to interview and I got to, express my vision and they got to show me what they've done. So you just go through that process and you land on certain people and then sooner rather than later you're in production first day and everybody's put all their time, all their effort into their pre-production, that planning and it's such an amazing team sport.
Tell me more about that. When you hit pause and then the choice of incorporating Tanya and Sonny and Richard, what did they bring? How did they elevate it and make it happen?
Well, for Sonny and Tanya, they both had backgrounds in accounting, and I did not want to think about this budget while I was making this movie. I wanted them to just handle that entirely, and I felt like having these producers with that background financially and accounting, working on, some giant movies, I felt like was a great Richard owning Filmmakers Ranch, all those resources too. And I mean, he's such a creative guy as well. He helped me out in some of my writing, and even now we're in the edit. He'll take a look at some of it and give me his notes. There's all kinds of great ideas. Everyone kind of brings their own, special superpower to the team, kind of. But for that pause and that new pre-production stage, I had a business that needed to be run, and I couldn't run it solely. I needed the adults in the room, I guess is how I'd put it, and they were the adults, and they helped me out.
What I'm hearing is it really does take a team. It takes a village, and I know that a lot of aspiring, I'm just going to say artists, because writers, filmmakers, actors, we want to get our story out there. We want it to be produced. But how? The how is always, it's either the mythical part, you're like, I give it up to you, or it's logistical part. Like, I need a producer. I need someone to come in and help me with the XYZ of it all. And that's great to hear that bringing in the producers, and I'm sure that cost money, right? But I also think the value of being in Oklahoma. I think all those people you named, and there's so many here in Tulsa as well, everyone kind of wants to help each other, right? It's almost like we want to elevate each other so that we keep working right here in the state that we choose to live in. So, did you feel that there was really great synergy and community with that?
Absolutely. I was amazed by this world that was kind of hidden to me open up as I got
Mm.
to work with Tanya, Sonny, Richard, and everyone else, that, how interconnected it is and how much everybody likes each other. And so it was a very fun thing to just kind of find myself a part of and being welcomed in. Yeah. I feel like Oklahomans, in general, I feel like have a chip on their shoulder where they feel overlooked, underestimated. And I find that especially in this film industry where, Oklahoma has a lot to offer, and everyone working here knows that. And so they're always trying to prove that, I feel like, and that's what makes them, I think, so great. They work so hard and they care so much about it.
That's a great point. These chips are like they're rocks, and instead of being a boulder, they're going to be stepping stones so that we can climb to the next level and be on top and be like, "Hey, look at us. We're pretty cool." So
Right.
talk to me about the casting process, because I'm the actress, so I'm always curious. How does the actor get in front of the director, and then how did you get some of these great name talents like Colin Ford and C. Thomas Howell? So what was that process like, the casting process?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I casted on Backstage, and that's where I found Olivia, who plays Charlotte, Tristan, who plays Levi, and Tammy, who plays Tammy. And so we had that previs stage, and I enjoyed them so much. Olivia and Tristan had such a natural chemistry together, where there was no way I couldn't keep those three on. Transfer them to this new sort of larger production, and we had a casting director, Ricky Maslar, and she got us in contact with C. Thomas Howell. And with Colin, she got us in contact with Colin, but I had met Colin years ago, through some unrelated things that we were both kind of interested in. We were meeting in LA, and he was kind of one of the first real, I guess, actors, like working actors rather, that I had met. I'd always had this love for film and this love for this industry. It was very interesting talking with him. And fast forward all these years later, I get this. Or I'm asked to basically write down a list of every character. What actors do I see? It could be the biggest name actors you can think of. Just create a list of people that you see. And Ricky had this list, and on Travis, like the first name I could think of was Colin Ford. And luckily she had cast him in A Thousand Tomorrows and had this relationship with him since he was like 8 years old. So it just kind of, it was very serendipitous casting Colin into that role.
Love that. And Colin was so kind. I mean, I got to interview him for our episode of this. He was so chill, so kind, and he loved Oklahoma. I mean, he loved Tulsa. He went to Bull in the Alley and the Canes, and it was really cool to hear the love for our state. And I asked him, I said, so if other writers and directors and producers want to use you in a film or cast you in a film, how do they get a hold of you? And he said, IMDb. But maybe they'll have to go through you. Hey, Kyle, could we?
Sure. Yeah, Ricky's a great contact for that. I highly recommend Ricky, based here in Oklahoma. Great casting director.
What's that process like for a director to hire a casting director? How does that work? How do you get someone like Ricky?
That's a great question. Tanya found her.
Is it Tanya?
A lot of the time I would just get, "Hey, Kyle, we have a meeting with this person." And I'm like, "Okay, great." And so I did not put in a lot of that heavy lifting finding these people, but I would get to, have that kind of final say and that kind of gut check, vibe check. But I had that meeting with Ricky, and I'll just say Ricky really knows what she's doing, and has a very strong opinion that is coming from so many years of experience,
Oh, yeah.
and so she will get it done,
Yeah. I
and
don't
so
think
I
Ricky
can't thank her
remembers
enough.
me, but I knew her back in LA, and it was a really fun Oklahoma connection 20 years ago when I was living in LA trying to be an actress, but it was always like, "I'm from Oklahoma." But it was live. We would go audition in person. There was nothing virtual, and honestly, I miss those days. I like a good in-person
So
audition, in-person connection. All right, so where are you at? I know that's grammatically incorrect. Where are you with the film now?
we are getting pretty close to picture lock on it. I was just in El Paso for a few days with our editor Zach Passero, and I think we're like on our eighth cut of the movie right now,
Oh,
and I feel like we're moving pretty quick, but it's really starting to sing. This is a process, and we get done with this cut. I left El Paso thinking I'm not sure what else I could do to this, and now I'm sitting here with so much more I want to do to it. So it
mm,
just kind of, with art, I feel like you need to give it a little bit of time. When you really reach that point of forcing new things, you're always wanting to try to add something or do something. And I think whenever you're forcing it, that's kind of when you have to know to put your hands up, and that's when it's done.
yeah,
So
that's
that's where we're at.
I think that's a visual arts thing, right? If someone's a painter, if you keep adding to it, it's gonna just be too much of a mess. So you have to pull back and just be like, it's done. Great. So once it's picture ready, I mean, or once it's edited, what happens next? What's your goal with this?
So after that, I'll be working with Stephen Phillips, our composer, and just spotting the film and getting everything scored to picture. After that, we'll be working with John Vogel to get all the sound design stuff figured out and worked on. We'll do our ADR, and yeah, I mean that those are pretty much the next biggest steps. We still have our coloring to do. Yeah, it's such a, like I said, team sport. All these people with all these different superpowers that I get
Mhm.
to collaborate with one on one. It's such a fun privilege.
That's a good word. Isn't it fascinating? You can, like, I don't know if you watch the Super Bowl, but you see these commercials, and the majority of the people have no idea what went into these commercials, and let alone a film. All these people you're talking about, these skill sets, these years of grinding and work and paycheck to paycheck, because as creatives, we never know, right? So it's
Right.
it's really a beautiful thing when it comes together. What's your goal? Do you wanna do a festival circuit? Do you want are you gonna do a big premiere? What's your goal with it?
All the above. I would certainly film festivals, just personally, just to, show off what I did here. But film festivals, screenings, big premieres, much as I can get, I'll take it. But Tanya is, certainly spearheading, the distribution phase of this, and so I'll follow her, and I'll follow whatever sales agents and whatever minds come to help this translate into.
So d I'm assuming it'll be an Oklahoma City premiere, but will you also have a premiere in Tecumseh?
Honestly, I don't. It would be cool. I just don't think we'd have the turnout for it. Maybe we get the word out, but
The economic impact is pretty profound when you think about people staying in hotels in random places that would not normally be booked, right? Eating at the local diner, hiring the local catering, that stuff really matters for our state. That's, besides the creative opportunities, it's the economic opportunities. And the cast, how much of the cast and crew, well, maybe not the cast, but how much of the cast and crew was local? How much did you hire local?
I think the crew, 99.9%, I think there might have been somebody who we flew out as like a day player or something if we needed a spot filled up. I know, at the end of the movie, we had a little schedule change, and a lot of our crew had to go work on another movie, and so we were having to kind of rehire some of these roles for the last few days. And so I think at that point we might have called in someone from like St. Louis or something. But yeah, pretty much everyone on the crew, Oklahoma, cast wise, obviously all of our great background. Yeah. Um, no, I think all the cast pretty much was out of state.
We're working on that. We're working on that. What's
Absolutely.
next for you once you get this movie off? What's next?
I'm writing something right now in the very early stages of it. Hopefully, this film can get me into the meetings to get this next one made. So that's just the process. You make one, and now do it again, and then
Mhm.
do it again, and then do it again. So that's what I'm in the process of right now.
Well, we can close with this question, Kyle. What advice do you have for aspiring directors out there in Oklahoma?
It's cliche, but just do it. Just make it. Whatever, it doesn't have to be, some big feature film, but if you're somebody who has no experience, has never made a film before, it can just be as simple as grabbing your phone, trying to understand editing and trying to find whatever creative itch you can with all the tools around you. And, I think that will snowball you into being able to work on bigger and bigger productions. So simply just make movies, and
Just make movies. There you have it, everyone. Go out, make your movie, and maybe hire a good producer.
hire great producers.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle, for your time. And we can't wait to see South of Stillwater on the big screen.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone. Thank you for watching and listening behind the scenes Oklahoma.